APTA CSM is just around the corner, and this is easily one of the most exciting conferences you'll ever go to as a physical therapist. However, it is really easy to get overwhelmed by all the excitement, and before you know it, the conference is over and you don't remember a thing. So here's what you need to know in order to make the most of your CSM experience without wasting your time or your money. Hey everybody, this is Elise with the OncoPT podcast, and I'm so excited to welcome you back to another episode of the OncoPT podcast. Now, if you've been around the podcast before, you know how much I truly love APTA CSM, and it is killing me not to go this year. I made a decision to go to Mexico for a destination wedding. You know how it is. So what I want though is I want you to enjoy your CSM experience. If you've never been before, APTA Combined Sections Meeting is probably the largest physical therapy conference to take place in the United States. I think last year there were somewhere between 15,000 to 20,000 physical therapists, PTAs, PT students, PTA students, and all kinds of other amazing people affiliated with our amazing profession. It is one of the greatest gatherings of the most impactful, exciting, enthusiastic physical therapy professionals out there. And it is so cool to go and get excited and meet all kinds of people and get rejuvenated and just overall get that passion back into us when it comes to physical therapy, because sometimes that day-to-day can just really wear us down. And CSM is probably my favorite way to do that. And you know, it is probably like my second Christmas. That's right, I hold it in such high regard. It is like there is Christmas and then there is CSM right below it. That's how excited I get about it. So like I said, while I'm bummed to not see you there in San Diego this year for CSM, I know you're going to love it. And I want to make sure that you make the most of your time and your money while you're there, because CSM can be very expensive. And I want you to make sure that you're getting exactly what you want out of it so that you can make this your best conference experience yet. So CSM 2023 is quickly approaching, and whether you attend in person or not, if you're doing the virtual option, there are some very important things to consider before you hit the ground at San Diego. So the first thing you need to do is plan your conference experience for success. Now, I don't just mean go in there and pick out the different conference sessions and then call it good. I really mean you should go into this experience planning for success. Because if you fail to plan, you're going to actually fail, truly. Don't go into this conference blindly because it's so big. Like I said, it's so easy to get overwhelmed. And that's very much what I did when I first went to APTA CSM as a student. I had no idea what to expect. Back then, the schedules were still on paper. So you got these giant, literally, I don't even know what size paper they are, but you got this enormous piece of paper for every day that you were at the conference with all of the different sessions. So you'd go in and check in and pick up your registration materials, and these were included in them. And so you went through every hour or every educational session. All of the sessions were laid out by the different academies within APTA. And so you would go in and you'd pick out the ones that you go in and you'd be like, okay, I know that at this time this is taking place here. And so we would highlight them and circle them so we would know where we're going. And then we'd constantly be pulling the paper out of our bags to make sure that we were going to the right place at the right time. So anyways, it was very overwhelming. It was very exciting. It was just one of those wow, I'm a PT student and I'm learning so much and I'm so excited to be here. And we had a poster presentation. Anyways, all this to say, we were so excited. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And unfortunately, I actually missed out on a lot of stuff at that conference simply because I didn't plan it effectively. So when you're creating these objectives for your conference experience, it's really important to very clearly identify, what do you want to get out of this conference experience? When I was first going to this conference year after year as a first PT student and then new professional, I wanted to get into as many educational sessions as I could. I wanted to learn as much information. I wanted to just soak it up like a sponge. And so for me, I jam-packed my conference experience with as many educational sessions, platform sessions, poster presentations during the break, but also wanted to see all of the booths. It was too much. And I didn't actually walk away from the conference having learned a whole bunch of stuff because my brain was simply so full and overstimulated. Now I know, as I've gone to a few CSMs by this time, that I don't do well when I plan out every single minute of my conference. So what I do is I'll look through the different educational sessions, platform presentations, and figure out, what am I really excited about? What do I really want to learn? Sometimes I'll even decide those before I look at the conference schedules, because I might find that other sessions that I didn't previously think about may really fit that bill. So I sit back and I reflect and I say, what do I want to learn at the CSM? Is there particular skills or knowledge or content areas that I want to spend more time on? So for example, last year in San Antonio, I did quite a bit of oncology sessions and whatnot, but I also went to a few more kind of outside of that oncology realm. So I went to some pelvic floor stuff. I did some more educational type, not like educational sessions, but like on education, patient education specifically, outside even of oncology. And that was really, really beneficial. So again, for me, I identified that I needed to learn more than just oncology specific stuff at that conference. I needed more. So I had these learning objectives for me. But then what I also did is I did not plan every minute of every day of my CSM experience. And see, for me, what this means is that I can actually kind of schedule spontaneity. And I know that sounds very counterintuitive, but I'm a really type A, strict, set to the rules kind of person. And what that doesn't allow for is the spontaneous interactions and relationships that can sometimes start at CSM. For example, a few years ago when we were in Denver, I believe it was, I volunteered to work at the APTA oncology booth. And it's nice because you can go there and you can talk to people about oncology, hopefully get people interested in joining the section, and meet some people along the way. And lo and behold, PT Dan, the kids cancer PT, yes, Dr. Dan Steventon, actually volunteered to work the booth at the same time. And we hadn't really interacted with each other at that point. Now he's absolutely one of the dearest people that I know. But we hadn't met before then. And because we both signed up to work at the booth, we very much had this moment of, oh, you're the kids cancer PT, you're PT Dan. And likewise, he said, oh, you're the onco PT. And it was so cool. And it was so exciting to meet someone who I have really looked up to and learned from so much over the past couple years. So again, if I had scheduled every single moment full of things that I had to get done, I have to go to educational sessions, I have to look at all the poster presentations, I have to meet all of these vendors, I really would have missed out on the opportunity to connect with PT Dan. Another example is last year, I was very fortunate to get acquainted with some of the amazing people over at PhysioSage. And they invited me actually to a lunch that they put on with some other physical therapists. And yes, this was actually during one of my scheduled sessions. But I kind of thought to myself, I said, you know what? I would really love to go and meet with these people and get to know them better and just meet these just nerd out about how much we love physical therapy. And sure enough, it ended up being an amazing experience. I actually met a couple other therapists, not just here in Texas, but from all across the country. And we've started these amazing relationships that we've continued online as we continue to build our practices and build our impact in our communities, which was so cool. And again, if I had scheduled and stuck to this super strict, rigid schedule of all the different sessions I wanted to, I would have missed out on these really important relationships starting. So again, when you set objectives for yourself and you know exactly what you want to get out of this. So again, early on in my career, I was very much, I need to go to as many educational sessions as possible. Whereas now, I'm a little more like, what can I really get out of CSM beyond just the learning? What kind of relationships can I start to foster? Who can I connect with? Who can I meet that I've been fangirling over for the past few years? Like Dr. Alexandra Hill of Oncopelvic PT. Those are now my objectives. And when you set those objectives, whatever they are for you, they actually free you up to make sure that you're taking advantage of different opportunities as they present themselves to actually accomplish those objectives. Now, after you've created your objectives, you need to create your plan. And when you're attending a conference like CSM that has multiple sessions happening all at the same time, it's really important to decide which sessions are really important for you to attend. Again, not necessarily all of them, every single time slot, but which ones do you really want to go to? And when you've decided on those, it is then important that you have a backup plan in place. I know, I feel like we talk about backup plans all the time on the OncoPT, but I feel like there's no place that's more appropriate than oncology physical therapy and APTA CSM. Here's why. Sometimes sessions, and this isn't specific to oncology, this is all CSM, some sessions have seating limits, and I have definitely been in sessions where we were like jam-packed. I mean, people were practically exploding out of the room because it was such a popular and exciting session that so many people wanted to go to. You may run into the issue that that session is full. There are no more seats, you cannot go in, and you've got to pick something else. And so if you already have an idea of, okay, if I can't make it to this session, here's my next session, you can just take off and then go into that next session, no problem. Is it a bummer sometimes we can't go to our sessions we want to? Yes, but having that backup plan can help kind of ease that a little bit. On the flip side, you may actually go to a session that you thought was going to be really exciting on paper, but then once you get there, you actually find out it's pretty boring. This happens from time to time at CSM. You just don't gel with the speakers, you realize that the content is not what you thought it was going to be, and that's okay. Because guess what? You don't have to stay there. In fact, I would really encourage you, if you find out that this session is not gelling with your expectations or is going to meet those objectives you set for yourself, it's time to move on to plan B. So at this point, I stand up quietly and I exit the room and I go to the next session on my list. And that's okay. But again, it's really important to have a plan, A, B, and maybe even C or D, in the chance that you don't gel with the session, or you can't even get into the session because it's so wildly popular. And again, when you encounter this, your conference experience is not a complete dud. You just have to make some adjustments and carry on with your plan so you can accomplish your objectives. Again, whatever those objectives are. If you're like me, when you're learning, you like to be able to take notes as you go. And how you take notes really depends on exactly what your preferences are, how you're most effective, and then how you're best going to be able to actually review that material later, like when you get home, when you're actually trying to apply that information to your patients so that you can best extract that information, remember what you learned, and then actually apply it in practice. So you need to have a note-taking system, whatever that looks like for you, okay? I can tell you that I prefer to just take quick little notes as I'm going along, and I have found that instead of trying to write down every word that the speaker is saying, I do better when I have just a doc and I can put that title on there of the session, whatever that is, and then just take notes that really resonate with me. The nice thing about CSM, not every session, but a good chunk of the educational sessions and even platform presentations will have handouts that go along with them. So it's really nice. You can even download them ahead of time and then take notes as you go. Maybe you're one of those people that likes to write down your notes. That's cool too. But again, whatever your system is, know your system and stick to it. Are you going to try and write down all of the major points that the speakers are going over? Are you going to write down things that resonate with you? Little tidbits that you think, oh, this is really a good point and I need to try to implement that in my own practice. But again, whatever that system is, know your system going into the conference, as in have your system figured out beforehand, and then just execute it when you actually get to the conference. Now, last thing you need to do in order to make the most of your CSM session is to be realistic with yourself. I am an introvert, which may surprise some of you in the sense that I absolutely have to be able to decompress after a major social function. meaning that I cannot jam-pack my conference session to the brim full of educational sessions anymore. I used to be able to do that, and now I just can't. Maybe it's because I'm older, maybe it's because I've been working for a few years, maybe I just don't have the attention span anymore. Whatever the reason is, for me and for you, you have to be realistic with your expectations. So you've created the objectives, you've created the plan, you've got your backup plan, maybe plans in place, but give yourself grace and wiggle room, because sometimes things are going to happen not exactly how you planned. And sometimes that's actually for the best when it comes to these conference experiences. So if you know that you're going to be completely overwhelmed and exhausted by day 2, after you have jam-packed your schedule full of CSM goodness, then don't do that. However, if you're rejuvenated, if you know that you need that, if you need to actually schedule out every minute of your conference experience from 6 a.m. to midnight, again, that's a big range, but sometimes it does really feel that long, then do that. If that is your thing, then do that. But again, it's all about being realistic with your expectations. How do your objectives match your plan, and how are you actually going to execute this when you get to CSM? Because CSM is such an exciting experience that is so chock full with amazing chances to meet people, to form relationships, to network, to learn things, maybe even get a job or some kind of other opportunity down the road, it's so important that you take advantage of every opportunity as long as you're being realistic with yourself. Again, if you know that you can't do that and it is okay with you, that you are okay to do that, then make some time. There's breaks scheduled throughout the day. Go to a quiet place, put in your earbuds, and just chill for a little bit. It's okay. If you needed permission to that, I'm giving you permission to do that. Not that you needed permission, but sometimes we have to have someone else tell us it's okay. To wrap up this episode, we are going to talk about some of these CSM events that you do not want to miss. I've interviewed some of them on the podcast already. Some of them have episodes coming up, and it's going to be fantastic. So make sure that you check these sessions out. Now, there's a lot more on the schedule that I have not even begun to cover. So I would really encourage you, check out the APTA CSM programming website. They've got everything there that you need. And usually, and I'm going to say like with 99.9% certainty, there is a conference app that you can select, and that will give you real-time updates on when the course is happening, where it's happening, when it's happening, are there any handouts that you need, or any other information, especially as conference time comes and there might be some updates. So first up, we have the trifecta for success, building a pediatric oncology rehab program from the ground up. I'm obsessed with this name, first of all, but second of all, this presentation is probably one of the most power-packed presentations that you're going to find. And what I really love about this, so yes, it's pediatric oncology. I know not everybody treats pediatric oncology, but here's where I think this can be beneficial for every rehab clinician. Pediatric oncology has one of the best approaches to deciding exactly who gets what intervention when. So if you're not familiar with Lynn Tanner and the Stoplight program that she has spearheaded, you need to check this out. So again, Lynn Tanner is one of the absolute brainiacs behind the Stoplight program, and I'm a big fan of actually implementing the Stoplight program approach into adult oncology rehab. So when I found out that Lynn Tanner was going to be part of this panel presenting on this, I was like, oh man, like, and done. This is an absolute must. And again, she's back with this amazing panel that I will be interviewing later on the OncoPT podcast, all about how her organization and how this group truly built a pediatric oncology rehab program from scratch. And I know that, again, regardless of whether you treat pediatrics or not, there's a lot of clinicians out there who are really struggling to implement a rehab program, truly a program of oncology rehab into their institution. And this is going to help you, along with the next presentation. So this one is called Implementing a Comprehensive Rehabilitation Program for Patients Undergoing Stem Cell Transplant in a Healthcare System. It's a long title, but well worth it. So I interviewed this panel of speakers back in episode 232, which I highly encourage you to go back and listen to. Again, this group of Mia Palazzo, Galen Schramm, and Jenna DeSimone, along with Jonas Sokolov, who was not on the interview, but I plan to have on the podcast later, are giving us the behind the scenes of how they truly and successfully, effectively implemented a comprehensive rehab program starting from prehab, going through, so with the patient through their hematopoietic stem cell transplant, and even into outpatient therapy well after they have done their hematopoietic stem cell transplant. This is what I've been dreaming of. I have been a part of hematopoietic stem cell transplant rehab, but not cohesively. It's been very much, oh, this patient needs this. Hey, come on back afterwards, whatever. And so this truly game plan of how to implement this at a system-wide level from start to finish, whatever finish looks like for these patients, is something I'm dying to get my hands on. And I know you're going to love it too. And again, what I really love about this, because I talked to them about this, it's not just, hey, we did it, look at us, good for us. Okay, that's not what this session about. This is actually a game plan strategy playbook of here's how you can do this at your own institution, no matter if you're a part of a large healthcare system, or if you're like me, you're a solo private practice owner who is trying to figure out how can I best help these patients from start to finish of however I can be a part of that journey for them. Now, next up, this session, no lie, I've been looking forward to for almost 2 years. And the reason being is I actually interviewed Scott Capozza and Julie Skurzat way back in 2021 as a way to promote this session for APTA CSM 2022. Unfortunately, the session was canceled because some of the speakers couldn't travel due to COVID. And then there was the whole weather situation, CSM San Diego. Anyone remember that? So, exciting to report, they are actually presenting this session finally at APTA CSM 2023, and you don't want to miss it. So this one is called The Silent Sequelae, Addressing Cardiovascular and Pulmonary Toxicities in the Oncology Patient Population. And man, I tell you what, like this group is going to just blow you away. So again, Scott Capozza, Julie Skurzat, Aubreen Fiore, and Laura Friedman are some of the experts when it comes to cardiopulmonary toxicities in oncology. So in PT school, cardiopulm was actually my least favorite, I'm going to say in general, it was actually my least favorite topic within PT school. It just didn't connect with me for whatever reason. But when I tell you that when Scott and Julie did the Cardiopulm 101 for me 2 years ago, I was blown away. And ever since then, I've become obsessed with cardiopulmonary toxicities and learning more about them and how they can actually help my patients. Because again, as we know, with the more long-term survivors that we're seeing these days, which we love, that also means the more long-term side effects that we're seeing, including the devastating effects of heart disease in our breast cancer survivors and more. So again, if nothing else, the increasing amount of survivors who are living longer after their diagnosis should be the absolute push you need to attend this session, which takes place Friday, February 24th from 3 to 5 p.m. And if you're looking for this, you may not actually find it under the oncology section. It may be under the cardiopulmonary section if you're looking at that schedule. So don't let this one slip you by, because I've literally been looking forward to this session for 2+ years. No joke. So again, if you want to listen to that episode, that is episode 215 of the OncoPT podcast, where I interviewed Scott and Julie as a preview about their session. Now, last up is not actually an educational session, but is something that I think is so beautiful and meaningful that I could not wait to share it with you. So Jimmy McKay of PT Podcast, who we know and love, is putting on Party with a Purpose. And this year, what's happening? This is an amazing fundraiser for nonprofit organizations that is bringing together physical therapists of all walks of life from all over the country, which is incredible. Not gonna lie, This is the number one thing I'm bummed about missing at CSM this year. Although very closely tied, I'm going to say they're like neck and neck. Scott Kaposa is also being awarded or being honored with the Deborah Flemenhoff Humanitarian Award, which I'm also obsessed with. So like, I mean, how can you pick between that? But anyways, if you haven't heard about Party with a Purpose, you definitely need to check it out. I've included the link to Party with a Purpose in the show notes as well as at the bottom of this video. So don't forget about that. Make sure you check it out because it's going to be incredible. Last I heard, there were going to be bouncy castles and like inflatable slides. And I mean, like, what could be better than that? Going absolutely wild, having fun with our amazing colleagues, all raising money for these nonprofit organizations. Like, I don't know what could be better. Answer, there's probably not anything better than that. So in conclusion, APTA CSM is an amazing opportunity to learn, to meet new people, to connect with old friends that you may have not seen for a couple years, and put some pep in your PT step. So make a plan for your CSM experience and make sure to enjoy it, because it is one of my absolute favorite experiences when it comes to physical therapy, and I know you're going to love it too. Until next time, this is Elise with the OncoPT podcast. And remember, you are exactly the physical therapist that your patients with cancer need. So let's get to work. Thank you so much for watching this video on the OncoPT YouTube channel. I'm so excited you're here, and make sure to hit subscribe so that you can get all the latest updates on all things OncoPT. And I'll see you in the next video.